terms of that ruthless sort of nature of that performance, is that as good as it's got this season?
Oh, I don't think we've ever beaten anyone by 100 points since I've coached the boys, so it's quite satisfying. And obviously we let a few through late, but other than that, it was pretty impressive just all round. So I think everyone, supporters, everyone who works with the players, is pretty grateful for that output. It was and it was a big night where there's a lot on the line. Let's face it, we'd love to get there, and we know we've got to win all three. So it was a tremendous performance by the boys.
Was it a complete performance, given midfield, forward line, defence, everything sort of seemed to be near perfect for most of the night?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I got a little bit crooked on a couple of things at the start of the third quarter where maybe we didn't give a ball or two off when we should have. We're aspiring to be a very team-oriented unit for 100% of the time, and giving it to players in better positions. And we did it for most of the night, and we reaped the rewards for a large part of it. And it was just a few isolated ones that probably in the memory banks that we'll continue to try and improve on. But I mean, defensively and the contested element, it was just a physical, an example of a really good physical performance from the boys, and that's important for us as we continue to evolve and try to establish ourselves as a team that, when whoever's playing us expects that, and I don't think teams expect that yet of us, so it's a good one for us.
Luke, as the game wore on and you got more on top from a scoreboard perspective, was your message to the players to keep the foot on the throat and continue to be ruthless? Well,
you're always focusing on method and the core of what you need to do well, trying to steer away from outcomes and things like talking about percentage, and you're trying to put all the pieces in place. As soon as you move away from what's important, focus on the horizon, then you don't take care of the road in front of you. So the boys managed to do that for most of the night. You could tell by the end of the night that they were pretty crook on themselves for letting the last 3 goals through, and that's a good sign. I mean, they were, you mentioned the word ruthless. It's a very difficult thing to be ruthless in any sport, and we don't talk about that. Occasionally the word's mentioned. I think if any team is, I think West Coast are quite ruthless at the moment. They're a very ruthless team. They're a strong team, and they set a fine example in all parts of the game, and we're aspiring to move up there. But yeah, we did. We kept our eyes on what was and on what was important, and managed to do it. I think we kicked the next 21 goals, I think, after the first one, and it was tremendous.
Look, as you say, you've got to get 2 positive results still in the remaining games. Do you feel like you sounded a bit of a warning tonight that if you get there, you can be a real dangerous side?
Look, I mean, I think people who watched the game would have seen the quality and the quantity of involvement of our players, and would think, the Dogs are playing all right at the moment. But ultimately, there's week to week. We've obviously got GWS this week now. I'm not sure if you can remember when Hawthorn beat them earlier in the year quite convincingly. The next week, what they did, I think, to Carlton, I think they played the Blues and beat them by 90-odd points. So I'd imagine they're seething after their performance last night, and we know what's coming. So and we need this week to refocus on the next opponent and what they're capable of when they're at their best, and this week doesn't matter. And I did say to the boys before the game, I mean, it's captain obvious, but unfortunately you got to re-establish what your weapons are all over again every game, and the challenge remains this week. We have to beat GWS to give ourselves a chance. So what they think of us, I'll prepare accordingly, but we'll treat them with respect, and we'll understand what we need to do to win next week.
How much of an example does Josh Dunkley set? I mean, 12 contested possessions in the first quarter alone. When the game was there to be won, he sort of was the difference in that open term?
I actually, it's a fine example, Dunks, and I had a crack at him. What do you have, 12 contested possessions in the first quarter? He only had 23 for the game, so I just ripped him apart for dropping off. He does. He's strong. I've said it before. I've never seen a player. Many players improve quickly. I'm so grateful to the work that our players have been doing with our coaches and our conditioning staff and our medical staff behind the scenes. We've seen enormous growth in individuals that are helping us play better. But Dunks is an example of a player whose growth has been really off the charts the last year and a half. And it was another night where, the opposition would have found it really difficult to play against him because he's so courageous and I think he used the ball pretty well out of congestion. His hands were good. So yeah, he's getting back to your original question. He sets a bloody fine example.
Touched on it before, but how much does, in the coach's box at least, percentage come into the equation when you've got your foot in the throat of a team like that? Do you consider it even slightly, given the situation that you find yourselves in just outside the 8?
Well, I don't. You know it's there, but I'm not sure the percentage is going to matter. I mean, ultimately, I think for us to get in, I think two teams need to falter, and I don't think. I just think we need to win both games and rely on teams to lose. I'm not sure percentage is going to help us at the end of the day, because I think we need to win both, the way I see it. So as much as it's there, you can make an argument that it's possibly an 8-point type of a game for us, because it does get our noses up there a little bit percentage-wise. But in the end, circumstances will tell us whether or not it mattered at all. So haven't got the crystal ball though.
When McDonald, Tip and Woody broke that 21-goal run, you could almost see the Bulldogs players visibly drop their heads because they were disappointed that they let that goal through. I suppose, did you feel that as well? But also, is it a good sign that they felt so strongly about not trying to let the Bombers score so deep into the game?
Oh, you feel it a little bit. I mean, it's a monumental effort to keep a team to that scoreline for that length of the game. So, but ultimately, then you reflect on what they've been able to do prior, and you've got to acknowledge that they'd been outstanding as a group, and so you sort of mind turns to that a little bit. But yeah, it was a little. I think they got 11 clearances in a row at the end of the game, and it's a good little tickle up. It's a good reminder going into next week that if you just take you get a spike from the opposition and you just do things a little bit differently, you'll be vulnerable all over again, and that's what happened. So I'm almost glad it happened.
Look, with the prospect of Matt Tabor potentially going to one of your gun mids next week, how big was it for Jack McRae to sort of break that tag in about a quarter and a half and get off the leash that Dylan Clark sort of had on him early on? Yeah,
no, it's good observation and good insight from you to pick all that up, because sometimes it's difficult to actually pinpoint what's going on in there. And he got sat on a lot last year, Jack McRae, and he had such an outstanding year because he was really selfless and he helped other people, helped other players get involved at the source by making 1v2s and working well within that. So we really expected Clark probably to go to Marcus. So we planned for that, but the either or, if it's not you and it is you, Jack, this is what we need to do. And they know that. They work well together. And so great teammanship. And he got the rewards in the end as well. He had, I think he had 18 at half time as far as possessions go, and he had a significant influence on the game. So they worked extremely well together, those midfielders. And I thought Pat Lipinski and Bailey Smith really contributed in there as well.
Did you see that coming? I mean, did you feel like you had a performance like that in the pipeline?
Oh, no, you never see that coming. I mean, we turn up to games optimistic, understanding that Essendon have got a number of injuries. But as I said in my presser in the lead-up, that can be dangerous in that gives players opportunities, there's new roles, there's a plethora of things that could happen. And so you turn your mind to what your strengths are, what you need to do well, understanding that you might be thrown a lot of curveballs from an opposition that's a little bit different No, you never see a 100-point scoreline coming, but we played pretty well against Fremantle. It was a similar sort of a game for a half, and then we sort of went away from what we'd established in the first half in that game. So our commitment at half-time was to stick to the things that make us a good side, and by and large that happened. And obviously we got the margin and the reward in the end.
You've lamented, I guess, that inconsistency at times this year. I mean, do you feel like you're edging closer to nutting that out?
Yeah. Well, we've been more consistent in recent times, but as the AFL season turns, you sometimes you're holding on, and sometimes you don't know what to expect from the opposition. Sometimes it's forced upon you. I definitely think that once or twice, especially from some of the teams who are up higher on the ladder. I mentioned West Coast earlier. I think they forced margins on us earlier in the year. And I still think the teams who are probably lower than us now on the ladder, they had good days against us, and we didn't need to be off by much. So we're learning, but your lessons that you get, it doesn't mean you're not going to get any in the future. So I'm really rambling here, aren't I? No, we're not that team yet, but there's good signs. Thank you.
Thank you.